Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Roast West Coast podcast. You might be listening to Coffee Smarter, Coffee People, or even Coffee Smarter Pro, our newest show, all of which are part of the Roast West Coast Coffee Network. Coffee People is presented by Roastery Coffee Packaging, which, if you're a smart, small business roasting excellent coffees, and you want a package to showcase them, you'll find what you're looking for at roastery.app. I'm Ryan Woldt. Welcome to 2024. Whichever of our coffee podcast shows is your favorite, and you find yourself listening to my voice on right now, I wanted to touch base to give you a heads up on what is going to be the same, what is going to be new, and what we're changing for the new year. But first, a look back at 2023. It was a huge year for Roast West Coast. We dropped 61 episodes of our various shows. Considering this is a one-person operation, that's me, that's pretty nuts. I spent hundreds of hours in this closet podcast booth working on this show and talking to coffee professionals, industry experts, and even some outsiders with unique perspectives on coffee. I did it all while fending off our new puppy and trying to mute the mic when the train passed by. I'm pretty proud of the last year, so much so that I've submitted Coffee People to the Ambies, which is a podcasting award show hosted by the Podcast Academy, a guild of our podcasting peers. I'll find out in February if we made the cut. Beyond this podcast, there's also the newsletter, which you can find at roastwestcoast.com. 76 editions came out, which is too many. More on that later. In 2023, we also partnered with Roastery, the coffee packaging company. We attended the Specialty Coffee Association Expo in Portland and Coffee Fest in Los Angeles, as well as took coffee excursions to a multitude of states west of the Mississippi. And did I mention it all happened while managing the never-ending needs of a very boisterous new puppy? Our community of listeners, readers, and passionate coffee enthusiasts has grown too. This podcast has now been listened to in 89 countries around the world. Most of you are here in the United States, but we have a contingent of passionate fans in Canada, Germany, Australia, the UK, and Chile. That is wild, and one example of how this coffee project has grown well beyond my wildest dreams. I'm working towards continuing that growth in 2024, so let's talk about that. Here are the key takeaways, or pre-takeaways maybe, for the upcoming year. For starters, like many of you, I've been inundated by emails wishing me a happy holidays, sending requests for money, giving me year-end wrap-ups, kind of like this one. I mentioned before, we sent out 76 newsletters in 2023. We're going to cut that back to one per week. We want you to be excited about getting a newsletter from Roast West Coast. Each week, those newsletters will be packed to the gills with content, and we'll be publishing even more on roastwestcoast.com sporadically. We just won't be blasting out every new single piece of content. Our newsletter website, roastwestcoast.com, will act a lot more like a regularly updated website, with new content dropping in the Bean Journal thread regularly. The Coffee People podcast, presented by Roastery, will continue as it always has. Interviews with interesting people associated with coffee, including baristas, roasters, cafe owners, farmers, artists, scientists, creators, green coffee importers, equipment manufacturers, and so much more. You'll occasionally see a Coffee With podcast sprinkled in. Our interview with heart transplant recipient Matt Hankis was our most listened to podcast of 2023. We'll connect with more humans who have a story to tell in 2024. Last year, we revamped Coffee Smarter to focus on helping people brew a better cup of coffee at home, to help them improve that home coffee experience, and we'll continue to do that. But we did hear from a lot of you that we lost some of the industry-specific information that you, the aspiring coffee pro, future cafe owner, and burgeoning roaster were looking for. In 2024, we've got you covered with Coffee Smarter Pro. It is an entirely new show featuring coffee industry professionals breaking down coffee industry-specific challenges. We'll cover green coffee, coffee shop startup, dialing in espresso, roaster maintenance, and so much more. We'll be collecting the best advice from the past 3 years of guests to include, just in case you missed it, as well as bringing in new experts on the regular. Beyond that, on the website we're adding some new photography features, continuing to showcase baristas who rule the world and the art of coffee packaging. Finally, we're looking to keep growing this community. Besides my regular visits around Southern California, this show will be hitting the road. We'll be attending the Specialty Coffee Association Expo in Chicago in April, and Coffee Fest in Los Angeles and Minneapolis this fall. And we're hopping on a plane to explore coffee in Italy and Portugal this summer. I'm trying to get to the East Coast yet this year too. I'll keep you posted if it works out. If you're listening out there and you want to have a cup of coffee, give me a shout at roastwestcoast@gmail.com or hit me up on social media at roastwestcoast. But if I'm being honest, I really hate social media. I think we all do. I mean, don't we? It feels like it's required just to exist at this point, but none of us really like doing it. I'm going to keep at it, but my responses might be a little bit slower there. If you want to connect, or you have a question for a future Coffee Smarter episode, or you have a great guest recommendation, send me an email at roastwestcoast@gmail.com. You'll find that info again and all of the most important links in this show's podcast notes, as well as on roastwestcoast.com. I have to say that at least like 10 times in every episode. If you're out there listening and digging on this coffee content, you're freaking rad. Thank you, and thank you for sharing our show with your coffee-loving friends. We are not marketing experts, so I know some of you have been talking about it. If you would like to be part of the reason we can continue to fund this show's content in the new year, please consider showing your support by subscribing to the newsletter at roastwestcoast.com, where you can find the free and paid options. Either are helpful. Obviously, we like it when people pay, but even just subscribing to the free one is a big help and shows our sponsors that you guys are out there listening. Speaking of sponsorships, thanks to the industry partners who are kicking off 2024 with us. Some of them, like Steady State Roasting, Zumbar Coffee and Tea, Moster Coffee Company, and Coffee Cycle Roasting, have been with us since the very beginning. That's amazing. Roastar Coffee Packaging has been a huge supporter, collaborator, and partner of our efforts in the last year. They're an excellent coffee packaging company that tell the big stories of small business coffee roasters. If you need packaging, learn more at roastery.com. Thank you to all of our partners, including Ascend Coffee Roasters, Ignite Coffee Company, Maria Coffee, Cape Horn Coffee Importers, San Franciscan Roaster Company, Crossings Coffee, Civets Roasting Machines, Hasea Coffee Source, Camp Coffee Company, and Acento Coffee Roasters. A special thanks to our newest paying subscribers, Thomas and Fisk Coffee, and listener Danny M. Thank you so much. Thank you to the rest of you. The first episode of Coffee Smarter Pro drops next week. You'll find it on Apple, Spotify, and of course, right here on roastwestcoast.com. Talk to you soon. This show is part of the Roast West Coast Coffee Network, and this episode has been written, produced, and recorded by me, Ryan Woldt. Always tip your baristas and be sure to drink good coffee. The Coffee People podcast is presented by Roastar Coffee Packaging. Roastar is a digital printing company that makes custom printed packaging for coffee products. They work with small, mid, and large coffee roasters nationwide. Go to roastery.com to learn more about their fast turnaround times, high-quality packaging products, sustainability efforts, and low printing minimums, which enable your small business to tell a really big story. If you are ready to upgrade those coffee bags, go to roastery.com.